This episode of Super GG Radio is brought to you by our Patreon. Patrons of the show can get our Dogs of Super GG Radio newsletter, Super GG Radio stickers to slap on your closest PC or bag, input on what we cover, game nights with the hosts, and even a chance to win a copy of an indie we talked about. Not only that, but 90% of all patron contributions go to the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. Visit patreon.com/superggradio to learn more. What's good, Internet? Welcome to session 218 of Super GG Radio. We're friends chat about video games and all things adjacent. I am your returning champ, host, Alex Arona. You must defeat Shenlong to stand a chance against me. This week, I'm joined by bad dude with an eye patch and a huge scar on his chest, Joel Sagat DeWitt.
Tighter, uppercut.
I mean, that is actually pretty good. Also, this is really a bald joke. You wrote this as a bald joke on yourself, didn't you?
It's low-hanging fruit.
Well, this week I'm also joined by the Ken to my Ryu, Alec Parks.
Yes, that's what I'm known for. My long, flowing blonde locks and crypto bro nonsense.
It's okay, Alec. I'll still 1v1 you. Alec, don't get into crypto.
No.
It's a bad time for that.
It's always a bad time to get into crypto.
Now, let me tell you about games.
Have you heard about the dark web?
Oh, yeah.
Dark web. This week we go through rebranding in the news and talk about a little-known adventure game in the Backlog Blog. But first, early adopters, where we play alphas, betas, and games where, oh god, they're watching me. There's a lot of games. Both these games I was very concerned on. Fear Underground.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Let's start from the bottom, right? Let's start from the real bottom.
You can't make me play spooky games. It's not October.
Well, I did it anyways. This is you were a man who was out for a rager, having a party, and he woke up, but seems to be buried underground, buried alive, and he is crawling his way out. And the game is just you crawling. Just like really a lot of like crawling, going through these dank tunnels. And man, I found this very confusing. What did you guys think? Joel, what did you think?
It was mood. That's what this game is known for, is mood.
It was a mood?
Yeah. It was, what, a bid mood? Is that what the kids say? Yeah, you described it. It's crawling through tunnels. You'll occasionally get to a point where it'll give you either like a turn that you can take, or maybe a next room, or up or down on a slope. It is really just trying to give you that sense of claustrophobia. Because they are really tight spaces, as if you were in like caves or something like that, spelunking kind of, and it's all very creepy. They're kind of creepy crawly monsters. Near the end of the demo, they were sort of teasing spiders a little bit as well as you're crawling through the space. There are some hazards and traps. So one piece of it, you would be crawling forward in the tunnel, and some spikes just sort of started appearing in your face. And they started moving towards you, and you had to crawl backwards very quick, well, as quick as you can, to escape that. And they had a turn left after you backed in a little bit. I turned over there, and then shortly afterward, the ceiling started going down on you as if it was going to crush you. So then you had to crawl back out, and somehow the spikes had left, so that's how you move forward. But it was.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
One of the times the spikes were still there, and I just died.
Okay,
I just straight up died.
Maybe my game was just broken. I don't know.
Or mine was broken, because again, I just died.
Yeah. So it feels very much like you're going to play this game our way kind of game, and you're here for the experience kind of thing. A lot of monologuing throughout, just sort of the character voicing out his thoughts in his head.
That's how you keep sane in these situations.
That's true.
You're not wrong. Like, you hear stories about people talking to themselves and thinking like they're crazy, and actually, if you read about it, it's like some people, that's just the way they process thoughts. So, but yeah, I mean, it looks decent. It's a pretty nice looking game. It's honed in really close, which adds to that claustrophobia of crawling around. There isn't really much you're actively doing besides that, though, and I think that's the thing I'd be hung up on a little bit. And maybe they add different elements to it as you go along. And I suppose in some way, this isn't too much different than some of those walking simulator games. Sometimes think about. So it's not alone in the type of game it's doing. I think it's just sort of the setting and the restrictions they're giving to you that really make it unique.
The other part is I think that like it's very much like a trial and error. I definitely found like the first real like thing that comes up is like this weird like red like claw just comes out of the ground and grabs your face, and that just like and everything's an insta kill here. So in that situation that happened, and I was like, well, that sucks, and I was like, okay. And then I tried it again. I'm crawling, and I start to see it pop up, and I stop. I just stop moving altogether, and it goes back in, and I'm like, okay, I got to go past it now. And like my speed, you're just like fast enough to go past it, but I hesitated a little bit, and because of that, it got my face again. So it was just like, oh yeah, this is like a very heavy trial and error. You have to like go back and forth and like, okay, got to do this part again, got to restart again, got to try what I was going to do there, which kind of reminds me a little bit like Prince of Persia, the original. Like that's what that game was. You know, you're just like trial and erroring the like jumps and patterns and recognizing, go left here, go right there, jump over these spikes, etc.
How was the checkpointing for it?
Not bad. I think pretty quick.
Yeah,
you pass any kind of challenge and it's right there.
Right. Yeah, I didn't notice any real problems. Granted, I only died that one spot where you mentioned, Alex, with the red claw coming up, because you actually, unless you're really paying attention, you don't notice it. Or at the very least, I think I was focusing on everything else in the background that I didn't notice that hazard coming up. And
which so you got to say that there is a lot going on in the foreground and background as you're crawling through these tunnels. You see like bodies getting dragged off. You see like giant head-sized centipedes, which was ugh.
And it comes in layers. Like the foreground and background have a lot of depth to them, so there's a lot to see, even if you're not seeing moving stuff, just the environments around.
This is a squelchy game.
Yeah. There's
squelchiest game of the year.
All right, you know what? I didn't think I had a word that bothers me like moist bothers other people, but squelch does it.
Yep.
Ah.
There we go. Nailed it. Yeah, and yeah, just like so many bugs and like the mud just sounds and feels wet, like dripping. There's worms everywhere. There's a lot of stuff. There is moisture there, and your character is getting real dirty, getting his hands dirty on it. And yeah, I just think that like, and you died only the one time. I died so many times. Many times.
I probably should have died more. I just squeaked out of those spikes in the crumbling ceiling just in time. And
there was a tunnel that floods.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. No, I did.
Get to that?
I did. Okay, that's the lower. That's the lower region. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to back out of that real quick, or else that whole thing would drown you.
And it almost looks kind of funny because, like, your character is crawling backwards as you're doing it too. So it's like, oh, this flooding's coming. I'm gonna shimmy backwards to escape. And it was kind of the same thing with the floor, the ceiling going down, and the spikes going through. And even as you're walking or stepping out of that falling space, like you just see your character crawling out, and it would show you getting out of the way just in time to avoid getting crushed and things.
Can you imagine though being that guy in a tunnel and it starts to flood and you're just like, well, I better just go backwards because I'm shoulder to shoulder here in this hole. No, thank you.
I think I would have died before that. My skill set does not include crawling in the dark.
I mean, also to be fair, you start off in a cell, like a jail cell, and he goes into this tunnel by choice. So, like, that's a real choice that I probably would not have made.
I mean, I guess it depends on what the alternatives are.
Yeah, and if you're behind a jail cell and that's not changing.
Well, he just woke up. I'd give it a day. Give it a day, man.
Just to see if they put you in there to dry out and let you out. If you're like, oh yeah, you stole your neighbor's 5 goats and now you need to stay in here until they find him.
That'd be the funniest part, really. If like you know, all of a sudden your like family is like at the end of this giant tunnel you spent like 10 hours traversing, almost dying repeatedly, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Where were you? We put you in the hole just to chill out, man. You were real drunk last night. We came and got you like an hour. Like, you left like an hour before we got there. Like, you've been missing for like a full day, dude. What happened?"
You gotta stop without saying goodbye. We just thought you went home.
I mean, you were blackout last night, so we couldn't like tell you. I mean, I guess we should have left a note pinned to your jacket. We didn't. Our bad, I guess. But really, like, going into this hole, that seems like a weird option, friend.
Armor was a bad choice.
He is fully decked out in armor.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, could you imagine that starts rusting?
Yeah. But also, if I'm gonna go to get drunk at a bar, I'm probably ditching the armor.
Yeah, at some point you're like getting sweaty and like you're cooking in there, and nothing good's coming out of that.
No. So that was Fear Underground. It was very, very interesting. I feel like this could also be like a real creepy iOS game. Like, because there's not a lot of control to go through. Mm-hmm. It's really well detailed graphically, but at the same time, I feel like because of the lack of like real detailed controls, it would port to iOS well. I mean, these graphics on these things are pretty good now. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they've got crisp screens and can run pretty decent stuff. So.
Yeah. Next, we played a game that I will remain wordless. It's actually not wordless, it's worldless. I got that wrong.
Yeah.
Worldless.
I definitely misread that.
I did several times.
It's easy to confuse.
But also, the character, Vector Man.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Man? With a shield.
Yeah.
Yep. In it, you are a couple of orbs that make up a person. You have a sword, shield, and spell attacks. And you are doing some light platforming, turn-based combat, and exploration. Alec, what did you think about Worldless?
I enjoyed the platforming for it. That was pretty fun. The combat was really tricky, in my opinion. Getting those perfect timings down, especially as you progressed. You're given an indicator on what your opponent is going to do, whether it's going to be a magic attack or a physical attack, and you have to block with the appropriate button. You can hold it in and just have your shield up, but after so many hits, your shield shatters.
Yes.
Or you can time
But if you do a
it.
perfect block, then it will shatter.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really hard time with those perfect blocks. But
yeah, I was challenged with it too. Because you have to choose the right kind of block as well, right? Did I understand
Unless
that right?
You get a skill tree, and the skill tree will make your block be all of them.
I missed that one.
That would have been good to know.
That's the skill tree I used. I grabbed that. That was the first one I got. I was like, well, and I only got to the point that I had one skill point, but I was like, well, I'm going to use it on this block.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I used the one that gave me more attack time.
Okay.
I just threw it in a slot. I don't remember what it was for.
So, it's very show don't tell. They're not really giving you a huge plot, and I guess really what it comes down to is that getting these abilities like these air dashes and stomps and other different cohesive abilities that will lead to Metroidvania style platforming. But the character just being these orbs, is you're full of light, and you have like an ability where you'll just flash your light orb, and it will interact with the world around you. So you can, so there'll be orbs in the air, and if you flash them your light, you will get they'll turn into platforms, and that'll be like a puzzle where you have to jump, flash your orb mid-air, and then you'll have a platform to land on. So you almost don't have a platform until you've already tried the jump. So there'll be more risk reward as you go. I definitely started seeing like jump, air dash, light up a platform.
Yes.
Right. So you have to do so you can get real intricate with that, especially if you start introducing more movement mechanics.
There were shades of that reminded me a bit of Ori.
Oh yeah, Ori's there.
Number one, they've got that bright white and deep color tones going on in the environment, but even the gameplay itself, like you said, it's clear they're going to get to the point where you're chaining together dashes and light ups and different abilities to make you traverse a longer arc of land. But
yep, and I thought that like again the world looks very like futuristic, but also nature-esque, and it's very colorful, different like tone palettes, and like just a lot of neon, almost like lights. Though I will say that the combat was like what the trickiest part for me. I know you guys, Alec, you were talking about the perfect parries. Did you guys know what buttons the spells were on?
There's more than one spell?
Yeah, I thought it was just one button.
Okay. So there are that's the thing, is that they aren't quite clear with the tutorials. There is your melee attack, you get a lightning spell, and then you get a ice spell. Ice spell, like one spell was on B, one was on X. So the two sides of the controller.
X, that would have made that one enemy I kept having a hard time with, that kept showing it was weak to ice, a lot easier.
Yep. That's where they give it to you. Then from there, it kind of is in this space where you have, it's turn-based. They have a time where they're going to attack you, and you can perfect block, and then it's your turn to attack, where it'll give them a meter of they're weak right now to this, which is either like melee, lightning, or frost, and you will then use the appropriate spell, and you have a timer meter that's going down as you're doing attacks, and once it's out, then it's back to their turn. It took me a while to figure out the spell thing. Then on top of that, there's a way to like fill up their meter to absorb their energy.
Yes.
I never got great at that either.
That was the one that I was trying to figure out a little bit, because the fire enemy, they're like you get the enemies in waves, and then you get their abilities. You can like absorb their abilities. The fire enemy, I couldn't figure out how to fill his meter. I just kept killing him. And they kept saying, well, he's dead. And I was like, well, okay, what's next? And it doesn't do anything until you're like, oh, no, you have to fill his meter. And that means just attacking and doing abilities that aren't necessarily his weak spot, to try to get his like absorption, or I'm going to absorb his power meter higher without killing him. So then I can get the fire ability, which would then unlock the next part of my traversal.
Okay.
But that wasn't necessarily like fully explained in a way that I understood, so I had a little bit of trouble with that one.
Just in general, this game was pretty quiet about the way it approached things. Even the map was very minimalist. It didn't show things as actual rooms. It was more like a branching path with different diamond spaces to indicate the different rooms. Like
nodes.
Yeah, so instead of seeing like this is a rectangular room and this is the part of the room you're in, it's just like this is the node of where you're at, and we're gonna broadly have it that way, and you'll find out whether or not you move to a different section of the map once you check your map again after going left or right for a while. The division of spaces wasn't all that clear, which in and of itself isn't a big deal, just something I noticed.
I definitely think that like this is a game that they were trying to be as minimalist as possible, but at the same time, I feel like just a little bit more could have been more like they didn't quite hit the sweet spot on those instructions. I feel like, I understand being minimalist. I just need a little bit more, just a little bit of an indicator, something like the fire guy. There could have been a way to like give me more info on like the absorption than just like a real quick like, oh, here's like 3 words on it, and it's like, okay, now it's gone, and I'll never see that again. So I think that could be do a little bit more to tutorialize, but otherwise it was beautiful, fun, and did some stuff that I had never seen before, as far as like using abilities and like absorbing enemies to gain new abilities, which is like, it's a lot of people who do that, but in this like turn-based kind of sense, in this like minimalist, like, this kind of way with the way the colors were and everything like that, it definitely had good Ori vibes.
Yeah, it being turn-based battles, I think, was a nice wrinkle to it too, because it's nice that they have this openish world, but then they have a split, clear division between combat and platforming. I don't know that all these Metroidvanias do a great job of making it flow when you have both intermingled, but it's a unique to me thing, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was really nice too is when you inevitably do lose a battle, you just get shunted out of the battle and you can walk right back into it. You don't die and have to go back to a checkpoint or anything like that. That
definitely made me like want to keep coming back.
Right. Yeah, it's like the Super Meat Boy thing of like, you died, well, here you are right back. Now go again. Yeah.
Awesome. And that was Wordless. Alec, let's take a break so we can Hadouken each other forever.
Hadouken!
Hey News, want to know how Joel got those scars?
I've got a pencil. I could do a magic trick if I find something.
No. No. Nolan's back already. I'll Oppenheim the crap out of you.
Trading a pencil for an atomic bomb.
That's an escalation for you. First piece of news, Microsoft's new Xbox Game Pass Core will replace Xbox Live Gold in September. That's a bigger deal just because Xbox Live Gold has been like a staple for like a long time.
It's just been the legacy naming convention since the first Xbox, hasn't it been?
More than 25? Not 20, 25. It's been a while. It's been a long time. I was trying to say if it more. No, I keep saying 25. That's how many games. God bless.
2002, I think, is when Xbox came out. 2001, 2002.
I don't think you needed it. I don't think it had anything like that for Xbox. I think it was 360 that started Gold.
Is that when it started?
No, Xbox Live Gold started in 2002.
Oh.
So it has been 21 years.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe like mid or end of life for Xbox, but
I use the Google machine.
Successfully, even.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, that's pretty crazy. It's a long time.
Really, the main difference is that you're not going to get the 2 free games a month, and instead it's going to be kind of like that PlayStation built-in library thing that they had for newcomers to PlayStation 5. That'll be like a certain 20 or 30 games from the Game Pass library you'll have access to if you get the core, and then it's the online multiplayer that you're really paying for on that.
Which makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure it takes effort for them to try to scour agreements with developers to offer their games free, especially now with Game Pass.
Yeah, and then if you go through all of the games in Game Pass just regular, it's like there's a lot of games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the list they gave, like, they're quality games that come with that. You know, they're talking about Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fallout, Fable, Gears, Halo. Like, it's a Ori. It's a nice mix of different games. That's a good, like, taste of what they've got.
Yeah, in different genres. Next piece of news, Sony agrees to 10-year Call of Duty deal with Microsoft, which just kind of goes to show you that Microsoft, the play wasn't for Call of Duty.
But how many Call of Duties is that really going to be? 2, 3?
They do one a year, dude.
Do they?
Every year.
That's disgusting.
I think they did 1 year where they didn't have it in 2 years. Or where they skipped a year.
As they should.
You know that each one, the installs are roughly like 100 gigs.
That's ridiculous. Get off my lawn.
I saw somewhere that they turned on the servers for most of the Call of Duty games, and apparently Black Ops has jumped to like 40,000 active players shortly after that came live again. So, maybe we'll see an uprising of old games like that becoming popular again. It's nice when they revitalize that stuff. To me, this goes to show you that like Sony already knew they had a losing hand in the FTC case, and they were probably having backroom discussions while that was going on about what deals to agree to on that. I mean, to your point, Alex, I don't think Call of Duty was the biggest play. I think if you looked at, hell, even the chain stuff like the Candy Crush and stuff like that, that stuff makes more money than Call of Duty might even. So,
yeah. But yeah, you need to get all those extra swipes in so you can clear the level.
I mean, really, that's the thing Xbox kept saying, is that we don't have any mobile answers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where we want to be. So,
man, it was those Match 3 ones, Farmville. You guys remember Farmville?
I remember Farmville.
Yes. Everybody I knew over 45 at the time loved Farmville. And
my mother, yeah.
Those Facebook games, like they give you extra currency and stuff if you invited people to join your farm. So I did those invites weekly. From like an old coworker would still be sending me invites till I muted her, but different
too
times.
Much, man.
Different times.
Next piece of news, Saturn Mini would be difficult to create, Sega boss admits, but tactical research is ongoing. I would buy a Sega Saturn Mini, but I can imagine that like a lot of those games like are hard to... They always say like the polygonal games are the ones that are like harder to emulate, and especially like on a Raspberry Pi, like small thing. I can imagine like how many games could a Sega Saturn Mini hold? Like 10?
I imagine it's more about the practical limitations that Sega's setting on it themselves with the hardware, like you kind of mentioned. I'm sure they could release some kind of box that would emulate 20, 25 Saturn games, no problem. It's just that they're looking at certain price thresholds, probably to where it's worth it to them, right? And they want to release it on a glorified Raspberry Pi where they can just dump ROMs on and let it go. But I think this emulation is always a little more complex than that, right? Because it's been a long time since I've done it on PC, but you have to like download ISOs.
Right, ISOs and BIOSes and everything.
Yeah. Burn it to a disk.
Right.
Now, here's a fun question for you guys. How many games do you think were on the Sega Saturn?
Oh, boy.
No looking.
I have very little
Highest without
knowledge.
going over. Highest without going over.
1! Okay. I'll play that game.
Price
you
is
lose.
Right
There's no way to go down.
Yeah, no, it's because my assumption is that Joel will go over. Except Joel says 2, and then he wins.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
He wins,
serious answer. Let's say 100.
I have the list in front of me.
Let's say 100.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 250.
732.
Wow. That many, huh?
Yeah, I'm questioning like how many came to America though.
Okay. All right.
Not a lot of these seem like games. Let's go in America. 540. So no, we're still way off.
That seems. Grant you, I did not have a Saturn and didn't pay all that much attention to Saturn, but it was my understanding that it wasn't their most successful outing.
No.
So I wouldn't have expected that many games.
I think.
Well, part of it is, if I recall correctly, it had a long lag between when it was released in Japan and when it was released in America. So we missed like all their title killers and everything like that.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, which one had more, the Saturn or the Dreamcast? And it turns out Saturn had more games than the Dreamcast.
Really?
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of like Capcom ports. Capcom Generation 1, Capcom Generation 2.
And
Street Fighter Collection.
the Dreamcast didn't live all that long, right?
Nope.
So I mean, if Saturn had that long of a tail of existence, I suppose it made sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember for a time it was like there'd be different versions of a game, and then Saturn would have one that usually had a little bit of extra detail or features or something like that to take advantage of whatever power boost it had. Am I right in thinking, did they have any Castlevania games for the Saturn?
No. I'm looking at the list here, and I don't see a Castlevania game.
Sega Saturn had Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Oh yeah, I did have a port.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I was looking at the wrong list.
Okay.
I think I ended up in the Dreamcast list. Yes, it did. Symphony of the Night. You're right.
Yeah.
And the Casper game,
Ooh,
based on the movie.
that,
Oh yeah. See now we're just going through nostalgia here. I'm like, oh, it's Clockwork Knight. I played Clockwork Knight. Clockwork Knight was pretty good.
Yeah, it's House of the Dead.
Did they have one of my favorites that I wanted more of? No, it didn't have. I was like Nightmare Creatures. Nights into Dreams was hardly a game, but still a classic.
Nights was good.
That was the thing that I remember seeing at the kiosk and be like, oh, whoa, that's cool.
Playing that for way too long at the kiosk too.
Yeah, but it was kind of hardly a game.
That's what screwed up my neck.
But you did, but you didn't know that when you were playing it at Sears for 10 minutes.
Absolutely not. Street Fighter Alpha.
Yeah,
2 and 3, 1, 2, and 3.
that was the other thing too. Some of those TAD fighters were more fully featured on the Saturn. So like
Street Fighter, the movie, the game. Boom, boom.
Have you played that?
Yes, a bunch. I made you play it at Galloping Ghost.
Are you
I make
sure?
Everybody. I make
feel
everybody
like
play.
I felt like that
Galloping
was
Ghost.
Primal Rage 2.
No, I make everyone play Street Fighter, the movie, the game. It's at Galloping Ghost. It's awesome. It's one of my favorites. It's awesome. And I say in a way that I know it's horrible.
Yeah,
It's really really bad.
yeah. Okay.
I like it though.
All
Jean
right.
Claude Van Damme. It's real stupid. Kylie Minogue. Next piece of news: Blizzard bringing its PC games to Steam, starting with Overwatch 2. This just makes sense. Get them on the bigger store. People are really like. I uninstalled the what's it called client, but I would have Overwatch 2 on my Steam account.
Now, do you think does it say whether or not we'll still need a Blizzard account to play?
You'll
It
need
will,
a Battle.net
and I almost
account.
assume that it will also pop up the Battle.net in the background.
That would be stupid.
I mean, that's what Ubisoft does.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
really
saying, like,
annoying. I'm still playing Watch Dogs Legion.
Daisy
and all
chaining launchers to play the same game sounds real
It doesn't.
dumb.
It's not necessarily daisy chaining, but
Mm-hmm.
it will like pop up a little window that says launching Ubisoft Uplay, and then it goes away, and then I
Okay.
look at my tray and it's there, and I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, I know what you're doing.
Yep.
I know what you're doing.
Next. I mean, okay. So, are you happy about this? Blizzard games coming?
I don't care.
I would be more excited if I didn't need my Battle.net credentials.
Yeah, I think it's something where most people who wanted to play those games by now already had the launcher and had it up and running, and if a game mattered enough, it wouldn't have stopped them. Probably since Overwatch is free to play, getting it on a larger platform like Steam will help the numbers, especially since they came out recently saying like our sales and player counts are dropping. So definitely can see it being the case for that. But yeah, I'll be happy to drop my Battle.net launcher.
Also,
if I
cards on the table. I'm pretty close to swear there.
can.
I said son of a bitch.
Ah,
So I
okay,
stopped myself.
good catch. Good
Call
catch.
myself.
I don't know. That sounded like it to me.
Next piece of news. Speaking of Overwatch, Gundam Evolution is shutting down. What a bummer. We talked about that on this podcast. I
That sure
liked
wa-
I liked
That
it.
sure was a good one of those.
At the same time, I also didn't play it again.
No, me neither. I liked Gundam to some degree. I'm not
I
going
like
to go
Gundam from afar.
Yeah, I liked the one Gundam show or two Gundam shows I watched when I was younger, and I'm good now. It was fun, but also none of the characters felt all that different in terms of their look or feel, really.
I felt like they felt different, but also but they definitely looked a lot of the same.
They all look like mechs, and that's an inherent part of the problem. I mean, part of what I think made Overwatch successful is that all the characters are very distinct and different, even if it's just physically, even if it's just the cosmetic look of it. And you can't have that kind of personality in a game when it's just a bunch of robots.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Unless you would have, like, the only way to think differently is if you picked a pilot for each of them too, and then have them be the character. But
and it would be cool if they did something like different, like they gave like stats and stuff.
Yeah.
But
it's too bad.
We fixed it. All right, Dolphin emulation is pretty much shutting down on Steam. Joel, what's going on with this?
Oh, I did this for Alex's sake, but my understanding is that reading their statement, they had communication with Valve. Valve reached out to Nintendo's legal team, and Nintendo's legal team says, nope, we don't want you to do this. And Valve went to the devs and said, if you get Nintendo's permission, you can list it on the store. And the devs went, we know that's not going to happen, so we're not going to do this.
Yeah, that's
but
the
it
short
was on
version.
There for a hot minute. Was it?
No,
it
was just coming soon. It was never actually released.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they were going to release on early access, if I remember right. Right. Yeah. So.
Valve covering their butts. Makes sense. Next piece of news. We got some, with all the sad news going on, we got some good news too. Where there is death, there is life. And we have My Friendly Neighborhood has gone 1.0. That was the game that was Resident Evil style survival horror shooter, but at the same time, the enemies were Muppets.
It sure was creepy.
Already purchased.
Very uncomfortable playing that game.
These games need to stop coming out, man. Like, these indies need to stop coming out.
Indies just want to scare the shit out of you.
Well, I just mean like a Viewfinder and Gravity Circuit has gone 1.0. That was the Mega Man style game where it's more based on melee. It's cool. It's really cool.
Is it a Mega Man like?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Speaking of, Viewfinder has gone 1.0. That one is the perspective style puzzle game, so I'm very excited for that one. T for God has also gone 1.0. That is a VR shooter where you are making your way through a cyber town to go have a cup of tea with God.
I was just about to say, this does not look familiar to me.
This is something I've been keeping my eye on because it came across to me on Twitter, and I was like, I should probably keep an eye on this. And all of a sudden, an article came up that it was 1.0, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
All right.
I heard it's a good innovative VR game.
Nice.
Next, Whisker Squadron has a release date, August 21st. Alec, be hype.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited because it's not actually Whisker Squadron. It's Whisker Squadron Survivor. This is the...
What is that?
Yeah, I know, right? They branched off during development and made a Whisker Squadron Survivor, where it is a go as long as you can style game. And it gets progressively harder instead of the story-based rogue-esque game that is Whisker Squadron.
So it's Survivor. When does no word on Whisker Squadron proper?
No.
Okay.
No.
Ooh. Next, El Paso Elsewhere gets a September 26th release date. That is the game that is Alan Wake, complete with PS1 graphics, but you are shooting and fighting vampires. That one is super fun. That was a very fun game from Steam Next Fest, but now it has a release date. Payday 3 gets a release date, September 21st. Oh boy, my wallet is crying right now because Payday 3... Oh, I've been waiting for Payday 3 for a long time, my friend. Oh, man, I'm excited. Oh, man. And also, what? Hold on.
What about it excites you? Like, what about Payday 3 is hype?
Being in a heist in these like crazy heist modes with other randos on the internet, and getting out with bags of cash to level up your characters, robbing banks, robbing art galleries of beautiful art that you could then sell on the dark web.
Now, you said that part of why you couldn't jump into Payday 2 was how much it changed. Are you expecting 3 to be like a fresh slate? And
Yes,
that's
the
why
other
it's going to
part.
be okay
That's
to
the other
slide
part.
back in.
Because I guarantee I'm going to play Payday 3 and I'll be like, man, this is great. And I'm going to play it for like 4 months. And then I'm going to come back like a year later and be like, I don't know what this game is.
Yep.
So,
Or
are
these-
you buying the standard edition, the silver edition, or the gold edition?
I have not looked that far. But thank you, Alec, for telling me there's options. Oh, does any one of them come with a mask?
Yeah, silver and gold both come with masks.
Oh,
That's cool.
what kind of mask?
Well, gold comes with the Statue of Liberty mask,
Okay.
and whatever silver comes with. I don't know. It just looks like a silver cloud mask.
Yeah, some of them are kind of nondescript.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing about it is that your characters all wore like kind of random masks, and then you could even like create your own. It was like, okay, put designs on it, spray paint it however you want. You would unlock like colors to spray paint your masks and different like accents and stuff. So
If
it
you
was
get
on
the silver or gold
customizations.
edition, you get to play 3 days early.
Oh dang, that's cool. Give me a price on these. Of course, they don't have a price.
Yeah, they do. Where are you
Where?
looking? Silver
Looking at
is
the website.
silver is $70 and gold is $90.
That's not the worst. That's not the worst. I gotta
I
stop
mean-
looking at this. Oh, wait, no,
I mean,
right.
games are going up to $70 in price
Anyways.
anyway.
How much is the base game?
40.
Oh.
Yeah, like really, like am I not just gonna pay $70 and get a mask? Like, what are we doing?
Well, you also get season pass for 6 months and season pass for a year.
I don't really have enough time for the games I want to play anyways. But Payday 3. Okay,
Hashtag
you.
ad.
thank you, Alec. I might just get that silver edition. Last release date, surprise, surprise, before the podcast, Borderlands the movie gets an August 9th, 2024 release date, which is kind of surprising because it was supposed to come out this year. Push back a year.
I'm hesitant to believe that because of the strikes.
Oh, that could also be the case.
Maybe that's why they pushed it out a year.
Oh, I thought that's what Alec was implying.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought he was
a little
implying
bit of
that
both.
it would be... Okay. All right. I thought Alec was suggesting that it would go farther out than a year time because of the strikes, but
Let's see how they go.
yep.
Getty's all mad at me though because I was telling him that like, oh yeah, the director took his name off of it. And you know what other movie, famous movie that happened to? The original Dune. Have you seen
Really?
the original Dune?
There was a movie prior to the recent one.
Yes,
Yes.
there was.
Okay.
And it was like 3.5 hours, maybe longer. But David Lynch. It wasn't great. Freebies. Brok, hit me with the freebie sound right here.
Freebies.
Freebies!
Nailed it. He knows what's up. First freebie on the Epic Game Store, we got Murder by Numbers. Murder by Numbers is an anime whodunit pixel puzzles solving. So you're finding all the pixel puzzles and you're solving all of them to stop to investigate a crime scene and solve murders. What is this puzzle called again? What is that called? Picross?
Picross? Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing
that's-
Picross.
Oh, I'm going to have to reset my EGS stuff now.
I've heard comparisons to Phoenix Wright
Yeah.
or Professor Layton. So that's probably going to be something that we check out here once I collect that. But I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yep. Picross. Elder Scrolls Online is free on the Epic Game Store as well. So you got the Murder by Numbers and Elder Scrolls Online. I heard it's real good now. It was one of those that like, it was like Fallout 76 when it came out. Everyone was like, this is atrocious. And then like 2 years in, they're like, oh, look at it. It's pretty good now. It's actually like real competent in a way that's impressive. A Final Fantasy 14 situation.
I'm surprised they didn't devote the same amount to their Fallout thing.
Fallout 76?
Yeah.
No, people are saying it's good now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just the people we know don't play it anymore.
No. They went back in and they played it for like 6 months and they're like, it's real good now. And then they like kind of fell off.
Yeah.
But they will tell you, if you ask, they will say that it's real good now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Lastly, Different Strokes. Different Strokes on Steam. This is a collaborative online painting game where players can create and edit and rate each other's art and putting each other's art on display in an art gallery. Because different strokes for different folks. It's pretty cool. I see some real solid Garfield art here. So I like this kind of like little artsy game. But it was me. I shurikened Joel so hard. You got a big scar on your chest. That's how you got the scar.
Still hurts.
I'll give you a chance to nurse your pride. Let's take a quick break. And we're back. Back with the Backlog Blog, where we play games Joel has been complaining about for some time.
Yep.
I didn't even write this. Like, everyone writes these, like, these self-deprecating. Joel, you got something to say about Tears of the Kingdom?
So, there's this little-known action-adventure game that came out a couple months ago. And it is a follow-up to what I consider probably the best Nintendo Switch game. Breath of the Wild was something that was a complete breath of fresh air for a series that had been sort of doing the same dog and pony show since Ocarina of Time. The structure had been more or less that way from Ocarina of Time onward, notwithstanding like they had the Four Sword Adventures stuff, and they had a 3DS game that was more akin to the 2D Zelda stuff.
Yeah,
But
Link Between Worlds.
that is on my to-play list. I've heard nothing but great things about that.
Oh, I
too.
like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. I liked how they reused that world, too, because it's a good place to be back at. Similarly, Tears of the Kingdom does kind of the same thing. It reimagines that same Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. Many years presumably past, you sort of see throughout the map, the mainland, that things have become more developed, more communities popping up, and more life in general. I do like that. It offers a lot new types of side missions. So a lot of the side missions before were just sort of go to X and talk to person, go to this area and search for this thing. And the quests are a little more varied. So for example, one of them is there's a town on the southeastern shore that was a town you could find in Breath of the Wild, but in this case it's been overrun by monsters. And the side mission was just to clear out these monsters, but it's a situation where there's just a ton of them sort of littering the place. It would give you a big bar of life saying, like, this is how many monsters you have left to kill, and then you'd have to clear them all out to finish the mission, and then in a reward, you would then be able to go to that town anytime you liked, and they'd have, like, spare weapons, some items you could pick up, an inn you could stay at, stuff like that. And then there was another side mission on top of that where you could help rebuild the space as well. So that was a nice departure. Structurally, the big changes, if anybody's been paying attention, are there is an ascend ability, and then there is the sort of multi-tool build item. I can't remember the name for it now, but
Hand.
Master Hand?
Master Hand. That sounds right.
Yeah. So I think some of my concerns starting out weren't quite as realized as I was afraid of. So like the ascend ability, you can do some really silly stuff with how you can kind of jump between, if you're underneath a mountain or a rock terrain and you're in a cave, you can pop right back out to the mainland area. I didn't find it to be too broken in that there were spaces where clearly the game wants you to use that ascend ability, and certain landscapes there's a lot more tunnels underground and things to do spelunking in this land, and it feels very deliberate with the tools that they gave you to do that. So that ascend ability, I found it fine. Like it didn't ruffle my feathers at all. It's that multi-tool thing. That multi-tool ability, it's such a cool thing, and it is so impressive to see what people have figured out what to do with that multi-tool thing. And it does have a lot of like, aha, that was really cool kind of moments. I just don't think I've got the creativity to utilize it in a way that's really rewarding for me. So you would sort of create makeshift solutions sometimes to puzzles. Like there were a few moments where I would just build a piece of equipment that let me fly from point A to point B instead of doing the intended puzzle path that they give you in the game. And sometimes it's satisfying, but more often than not, I feel like I'm kind of cheating, but I'm also I have no incentive not to do this if it'll work.
I think that they definitely intended for that kind of idea to like, oh, I'm going to do all this crazy idea, and it could be cheating, you know?
Yeah, and I think for most people it is it's so cool that I can sort of create my own rules and take care of this kind of thing, and there were definitely a few moments for me with that, but like the fire dungeon. The fire dungeon is mostly a series of towers, and you have cart paths. And you're supposed to use carts to find your way from point A to point B, and the Goron has a power where you sort of throw him like a bomb and he explodes stuff. I found it a lot easier for me to create a flying machine and go the different routes that I needed to after about halfway through. And that was one where it's like, I'm sure the actual solution would have been a neat experience, but I'm tired and I really just want to get this done with. You know, I struggle with this game because at its core, it's the same skeletal structure as Breath of the Wild. Like the move set is the same, your core kit as linked is the same, the upgrading equipment is the same. The main difference in weapons and equipment is the fact you can fuse things to your equipment, which I think works really well with the weapons, in that you get enough monster pieces to where you can assemble stuff and beef up your weapons pretty quickly. I just didn't feel much value in tinkering with the shield stuff too much.
Were you blocking a lot?
Not really. And I think that's part of that, is that I tend to play in this game where I'm trying to dodge, because they've got that quick flurry thing where if you dodge, it slows down. You get the whack the bokoblin 20 times before he goes out of slow motion, and that's how I approach stuff. So I did learn how to shield slide this time, though. So I definitely
learned how to do the surfing, right?
Yeah. So I did have some fun doing some mountain surfing with that a little bit too. But
see, that's where I hear the big thing for fusing things to your shield came in, was just different ways that you could shield slide.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like you could shield slide with a cart.
Or you could like put something like a bomb on your shield, and then when you jump up and fall down on the shield, it blasts you into the air.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So maybe that's a me problem with some of that, because I tinkered with things, but I maybe not enough to really get the full breadth of that experience. I do like there's a lot of different equipment. So in the first game, there was really only a handful of sets of equipment. There's all sorts of tunics and pants and headwear you can find. Like you can find the Ocarina of Time outfit. You can find the Wind Waker outfit. There was situational stuff, not just for temperature, but in the depths, there's this stuff called gloom, which doesn't just hurt you, it also like destroys the heart container, so you can't refill it unless you reach a certain point. So there's stuff that's like gloom resistant armor. There's armor that lights up, so when you're in the depths, which is this underground area where everything's tougher and it's dark there, it would help light the way. For my money, the depths are where the money's at. Like that's the peak appeal of it, because that's the one place that kind of retains that mystery that Breath of the Wild had. Part of what was great about Breath of the Wild is that it was this barren landscape. You don't know where you are, what happened, or what you're doing, and you're not just uncovering parts of the map, but you're also uncovering parts of the story and the world and what happened to it while you're playing through. Because this was kind of a known quantity, it dispels that illusion a little bit. And even the Sky Island stuff feels really sparse and not as interesting as I would have liked.
It's kind of funny to like really to like that was like the big selling point, and it was really burying the lead actually in the end.
Yeah, you know, and I had a sense that might have been the case, just because if you played Skyward Sword, they've got a Sky Islands type place, and you could fly in it a little bit, but it was pretty limited. And this feels like a natural extension of that. And there's plenty of like puzzles and stuff to do, but it's not really an exploratory place like you might have expected with the way that they presented it in this game. So that was a bit of a bait and switch. In terms of the, I don't want to linger too long here, but in terms of the actual dungeons and the final dungeon, the dungeons don't feel too dissimilar from Breath of the Wild. They are bigger, but it is the same kind of like you have 5 switches to hit, which will then open up the final boss of this dungeon kind of thing that Breath of the Wild did. The difference is that each of the heroes that you team up with have different abilities that work specifically for that dungeon. And then you gain that once you complete the dungeon. The dumb thing is that you had to have their seals activated to use their power, and there's actually like a ghost-like avatar that follows you around in the world when you've got all of them engaged. So like you could have 4 different sages, like mirror images, sort of walking around you on the field while you're trying to do things, and some of them will automatically attack enemies as you go through them, and you can also, you have to like walk over to them and hit A in order to have it activate. So even if you're not trying to, you could run around, accidentally tap the button where like one of them might shoot an arrow or blow up for you, and it's like you totally didn't mean to. So it was kind of unwieldy. I wish they had found a more nuanced way to handle that stuff, but I guess that's neither here nor there.
As someone who skipped pretty much everything about Tears of the Kingdom, how many sages are there?
1, 2, 3, 4, including, I'll say there's 6. There's 5, and then there's Zelda. Zelda is one of the sages. And it's kind of funny. It's like there's the Rito, there's the Zora, there's the Gerudo, and there's the Goron. And then there's a 5th one, but at this point in the game, she's just a robot.
Robots are cool.
She's just a robot in the depths, and she's more or less like a mech. And the whole dungeon is just taking her from space to space until you get to the final boss, like just walking around the depths. But you reach these regions where there's like items that you can use the master hand to assemble stuff with. You can equip her with the different items, so you can like place a fan on her back so she can glide quicker, or like put a missile on her arm, or one of the laser guns or something. So that was probably one of the cooler moments when it came to the dungeons itself. When it comes to the final boss, I didn't find Ganondorf all that difficult, which is okay. There is some cool things that happen in the final boss, though. One big aha moment is that when you're fighting Ganondorf first, it's a sword fight, and You know how you can do the flurry rush thing where you dodge right on time and things slow down? He does the same thing to you.
Ah.
So if you walk up to him and just try to swing, you're gonna see the flurry rush, and you sort of have this fun back and forth where it's like he'll do his flurry rush, then you need the dodge right in time to do your flurry rush, and then you get to actually attack him and hit him. So made it really nice and dynamic feeling, even if it wasn't like something I got pummeled with. And overall, the ending was satisfactory. I like Breath of the Wild. I don't know how much of the story you don't get that much story unless you find the memories around the world.
Yeah, or like the glyphs or something. Right?
And the glyphs, and I couldn't bring myself to care enough about the story in this game to do that. And it's not for a lack of them trying. Like that, this game at its core has more story to it, overt story, whereas Breath of the Wild was very like, you're uncovering the pieces and the real story happened already and you're just dealing with the aftermath. This feels more like you are in the midst of this main story, right? And they close the loop on a lot of mysteries in a way that doesn't feel cheap. It's very brief and leaves you to just sort of like infer about a lot of what's happening. It is a time travel story, so just to warn you about that too. But you were
going to say it's a multiverse story, and I was like, not again.
No, thank God.
So what's that make 3 time travel stories
in Zelda?
Yeah,
I feel like the storytelling is whatever Nintendo wants us to make. Like they came out with a whole compendium book,
but they also said that has been. But they've also said that's been like oh yeah, by the way, that canon's changed now.
Yeah, it's because it's whatever.
Of course,
it's whatever
time
they
travel.
want it to be. That I suppose that's canon in general, right? It's whatever they want it to be. But yeah, I mean, it's the timeline is a bit of a silly thing because it really, the series is treated more like every generation has a different Zelda and Link, and it's just this timeless battle between them and Ganon or Ganondorf, and just reincarnated in different ways. But this game does try to create a loop that feels like it made sense, and I'll say one of the details for you once we stop recording, so I don't spoil all of it. But I was satisfied with the story, disappointed with the gameplay. It changes things in some ways that I really don't like, and keeps some things that I could have preferred changes for. It's not a bad game. It's just not the direction I wanted them to take it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Joel, I hope that I hope that Nintendo hears your words and get very upset at you.
7.5 Nintendo. Do better.
That's so brutal. Okay, so that was a lot of Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom. Real quick, I'm finishing Dredge. I started Dredge, and then I basically just kind of kept. It had a really good loop. So Dredge is an indie game where you are a fisherman that his ship was destroyed, and you wake up in a weird town that's on this island, and they say, "Hey, you're a fisherman, and you lost your memory, of course. Here's a new ship. It's kind of rickety. You should try to figure out what's going on." And you are slowly discovering that it's a smaller map, but there are five hub islands, sets of islands, one in the top left corner, one bottom right corner, top right, top left, etc. Top and bottom corners. And as it turns out, there are Cthulhu style monsters.
Yeah, eldritch horrors.
Yes, exactly. And you are doing little quests. You're picking up fish. You're fishing. They're see a little fishing circle in the water. You will fish, and everything will be fine. You'll be catching your fish. You sell them. That's how you make money. But occasionally you'll pick up one that's a mutated one with with like like 1,000 eyes or something like that, and you're like, oh, that's not correct, or like a hairy fish, something like that, and it's like supposed to be like mutated, and then each section of or each island and the corner of the map each have their own like eldritch horror, so you have to deal with that, and there's a guy who's like, oh, collect these. I need these. I need you to collect these different relics for me, and then we could figure out what's going on. And you start to realize he's kind of putting together relics to possibly call down the great sea god. Who is this great sea god again?
I don't know.
I used to know this because he was in a bunch of games too. Sea Salt as well. He was one of the gods in Sea Salt. There was a bunch of different ones. But that being said, you are fishing, getting money, and then using that money to upgrade your ship. There is a skill tree, which you will take parts that you scavenge, like wood, metal, and different pieces like that, and then you will upgrade your ship. And again, there are quests, so you're going and like, oh, find me this amount of fish, or can you go to this spot and find me my necklace, and you have to fish and find a necklace, or one guy, the Eldritch Horror killed all of his friends, so he's like, what I want you to do is get me these fish. We'll make a special bait. I've set up traps, and we will blow them out of the water. And so you find the fish, you put them in the individual traps, and the whole time you're also again avoiding the Eldritch Horrors, because occasionally they will just pop out and attack you and damage your ship.
Of course, they're doing it indiscriminately. They don't care about you.
Exactly. Also, at the same time, nighttime is not a good time, because you will start to see things. I had a ship that was following me, and I was like, oh, there's another ship that's weird, because there hasn't been any other ships like actually like floating about, and it was like, it was real late at night, and I went up to the ship, and then it was just it stopped being a ship and was a tentacle, and it killed me. And I was like, that's not fair.
What, was it one of those, like, did it actually scare you moment, or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There'd been a couple of like, it wasn't jump scare style like that, but it definitely like it shook me for a second. I just kind of jumped real quick.
Right.
Because there was also one where they like, go fish this thing out of the water, and I go to the spot to fish, and I see a giant crack in the ground, and I see these things in the ground, and as I'm fishing, all of a sudden a tentacle jumps out, and it like attacks my ship, and like the whole point of it was that you were supposed to realize that, and if you explore the islands, you find somebody that says, yeah, that tentacle monster's weird. I have a thing that could probably stop him for you for a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But like just the aggressive nature of some of these monsters, and they're not all tentacle monsters. There's different ones too, a giant anglerfish and stuff like that. It's just like the aggressive nature of them. Sometimes like they aren't always on your case, but when like all of a sudden you see one, you're like, ah, crap, I gotta go, move, because this one's gonna take a chunk out of my ship, and then I gotta pay for repairs, and that's a whole other thing.
Now, things look mostly dreary and kind of muted in color, but I've got to say that the art style is very nice. It's very distinct. The characters have a lot of good detail on them, in spite of this kind of cel-shaded, simplistic look here. And I like...
But you do get the different corners of the sea have different kind of biomes to them as well, so at least there's like a variation in that. You get like a tropical area, you get a volcanic area, and actually like how you like the spots that you fish are different like depths to them. So you need varying fishing rods and different like pieces of like fishing gear to fish in them, and so that's like part of the like upgrade / level progression, is that like you don't like, you can explore the whole world, but it isn't until like you get the right fishing thing, which comes with over time, you gathering resources and upgrading, will you be able to fish in this one area. So stuff like that. I end up upgrading really fast. Like I once I realized that what the skill tree was, I just started grinding, because it's such a nice like loop of just like swimming around and fishing, and then when fishing takes a lot of time out of the day, so you're just like filling up your ship with fish, sell it, do another run of fishing, sell it. Oh, it's nighttime already. Okay, now hit the sleep button, and you in the morning ready to go do it again. And I just kept doing that to the point that I was all like, Oh, I have almost all the skill tree filled out, and I haven't like really dug into the story.
But so it was fun then. The actual act of
fun.
fishing was fun. Okay.
Yes, it just ended up being like very like a nice passive, comfortable thing that I could zone out to, and also just like, oh, okay, it's pretty good, and I like the mechanics, I like the story, and then once like you dig into it a little bit further, you're like, oh, this is actually kind of crazy, and some of the stuff that's happening around it with like the nighttime stuff, like the game at certain points requires you to fish at night, and it's like, oh man, this is actually nervous. In this section now, for some reason, there are like red clouds that are like follow me around, and it makes me nervous that something bad's gonna happen, or just different stuff like that. I'm just like, oh man, this is not gonna be good. I don't like this being at night.
Was there a key ominous song or sound similar to that iconic ditty from Jaws?
Not Jaws, but I will say that the game is pretty much always on like an on edge type of music. Like it's like, oh, this is very nerve wracking. It doesn't really get comfortable. And eventually I got used to that, but nighttime the anxiety ridden music was like amped up. So it was like even more more stressful. And especially after like that one time I saw the ship, I was like, now at this point, all bets are off. Anything can happen. So yeah, that was Dredge. It's a short time game. I would say 4 to 6 hours. I really liked what I played. I'm like right at the tail end. Like it's like the last thing is like, hey, go see the guy, and if you do, that's the end of the game. So that's what I'm gonna do right now.
Nice.
Good deal.
Yep.
Good deal.
So that was Dredge. And this will take us to our last segment of the podcast, One Last Thing. One last thing where I make one last sentence, one last statement, sending us into the weekend, you the listener, into the weekday. Also for Getty, brought to you by the word squelch.
Aww.
Can we have a category this year that's squelchiest game of the year?
We have it already. But yes, we can. Yes, we can. I'll write that down.
I think we need to search. We need to cast a wider net. Make sure we are finding all the squelchy games of 2023.
Squelchy. I'm writing this down now in the doc. Also, at the same time, Sludge Life might be on there. It's a pretty squelchy game.
Okay.
I'll take some video for you.
All right.
All right, my one last thing. I think that I'm actually going to start trying to play Subnautica because it works on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I should probably get to work on that because I'm already behind. Joel.
I need to figure out how to do a refund for a Nintendo eShop game. Because, boy, that Fall Apart Porcupine sure is broken.
Oh, that's a bummer, man.
On Switch, at least, like I loaded up in this part of the game where it wants you to follow your cow friend to hang out in the wilderness. And you're supposed to chase her. You go to the next screen, she's gone. And no matter where you look there, she's gone. And then you'll go back to the prior screen, and it'll start the same conversation over with her. Except she's at the start of the area, you're at the tail end. So, like, all the word bubbles are happening way over there where she's at. And you just need to hit A over and over to sort of scroll through the text to get the action started again. So
you did the full restart, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So, wish me luck on that front.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with you because I'm going to end up attempting to play that one as well.
Okay.
Alec?
Well, I'm going to, now that I know this lovely news about Subnautica, I guess I'll have to pause Mega Man Battle Network 5. And
it's
work
supposed
on
to be video game homework, and we're probably very behind. We probably should have been playing it already.
Mm-hmm.
I called Getty yesterday, and I got confirmation. He has also not started Subnautica.
Okay, well, as long as I'm not the last one to start it.
No, again, I'm going to install it on my Steam Deck, and I'll be ready to go. And that will be it for this week's Super GG Radio. Before we go, you can find us on Twitter at Super GG Radio. Also, you can find us on Blue Sky Social at Super GG Radio. at twitch.tv/SuperGGRadio, where my computer was in the shop, so my main PC, so I was on my backup PC, so I did not get to stream this week, but I will be back playing my backlog on Mondays, as well as playing Skater XL and Chill on Tuesdays. Wednesday, Joel is disco dancing with Disco Elysium. You're close to the end, aren't you, Joel?
I was surprised that my Twitch details was still loaded up when I streamed this week. That made sense. I found a second piece of body armor.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I've got a hand, and I've got the corpse in a fridge. I just need to figure out how to take the body armor off the corpse to work on my collection. And... yeah, it's as good as it sounds, Alec. I'm doing real detective work. I found out what my name is. I found my badge.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I gave myself a very fancy name, and it clearly wasn't my real name. I still want to see if they'll let me call myself by my fancy name when I meet new people.
You're a fancy boy.
We'll have to see. Oh, man. And I found like a scarf and like a cool jacket, and bought some sunglasses. Yeah, I'm looking pretty cool. They would not let me cut the mutton chops though. I tried to use the razor and I just lost health. What? So still playing along. To your point, sounds like we're about done. So
yeah. And then Saturdays, Joel and Kelly, are you still attempting to escape the Escape Academy?
Going to be a few weeks off, but yes, we're probably one episode away from being done with that and then ready to move on to the next thing, which we're still talking through.
Awesome. And if you'd like to reach us with questions or input, our email address is mail@superggradio.com. You can also check us out on TikTok and YouTube, youtube.com/@superggradio and tiktok.com/@superggradio. Provide us a review on iTunes with the podcast app of your choice. Give us the old 5 stars on the Spotifys. GG, Joel.
Good game.
GG, Alec.
GG.
Good night, everybody.